Alright, so now let's take a look at exactly how to draw our supply and demand zones. And for the rest of the course, I will be using TradingView. TradingView is, in my opinion, the best charting platform. It's the platform I use for all my technical analysis. If you for some reason don't use TradingView yet, I will make sure to leave a link down both in the top comment and the description that you can use to sign up for free and also get a little bonus. But now the tool we want to use to draw all our supply and demand zones can be found right here. You press on geometric shapes and you go down here to the rectangle tool. I have personally customized this tool a bit to be a gray area like this, and you can customize the tool by pressing on the settings button up here. You can choose to have a middle line or not, and you can choose the background color here, but I'm gonna keep it as it is. So the first method to draw your supply and demand zone is to use the last candle before the supply or demand appeared. So for example, right here, you can see that we saw aggressive demand coming in. And the first method is to take your rectangle tool from the lowest point of the candle before the demand come in, you drag it up to the highest point of that candle. So you drag your zone like this, and then you drag here to the right. And if you guys want to keep it very simple, you can use this method. But what I prefer to do here, let me delete this zone right here. What I prefer to do is to include a cluster of candles. The good thing about this method is that you will often get more accurate zones, but the sort of downside with this method is that it can be a bit harder. So if you guys want a rule of thumb, you can include a cluster of 3 candles. So what we do here is that we look at the 3 candles that happen before the demand came in, and we use our rectangle tool and we make sure that we include the whole cluster. So we include all these 3 candles that happens before the demand come in. So if we use this method, let's now draw a supply zone. So if we take a look right here, we saw a massive supply shift. We saw strong supply coming in. And using this method, we once again use our rectangle tool and we make sure to include the cluster of 3 candles that happen before the supply came in, and then we drag this zone to the right. But as I talked about earlier in the course, it's very important to remember that we will many times find these kinds of movements when the price quickly pushes above supply and demand before it reverses. And here, another principle when it comes to drawing supply and demand zones is that, for example, in this example, when we saw supply coming in, the price came back up, and then we saw supply coming in once again, is that we want to adjust the zone going forward according to the most recent supply move. And here, and this is very important, if we use the same rule as we recently talked about for this supply shift right here, remember what we then would do is that we would include the cluster of 3 candles that happen before the move up here. So we include all of these 3 candles and then we drag the zone to the right here. Here it's important to think, is this really the best way to draw supply right here? Because in this case we have to remember the previous supply area we drew looked something like this. And does it really make sense to draw the supply area lower than the last time? Well, since we saw the fake out right here, one could actually argue that the supply started to come in already at that point. And if you use the cluster of 3 candles method before the supply came in at that point, then the new supply zone would look more something like this. And this can actually be hard and take quite a bit of practice. So do we consider the supply starting from this point or from this point? Well, my 2 rules here is that you want to take the previous supply and demand into consideration, but what you also want to do is that you want to take the price action in consideration. And with price action, I mean that you want to take a look at how the price reacted to the previous supply area. So in this case, at least for me, the supply area right here makes more sense. And if we now once again switch the attention to the demand area, let's see here if we saw some demand coming in using the 3 cluster method. We drag the area a bit to the right here. And as you guys can see, we eventually saw demand coming in at this area, the beginning of a stronger move towards the upside. And what you also can see here is that if we extend the supply area even more, We indeed saw selling pressure, strong selling pressure coming in at that area multiple times. Perhaps using the 3 cluster method, you would have adjusted your area like this for the next supply area, right? If you consider this right here, the start of the supply. This video was just a clip from my full supply and demand trading course. To watch the full video, simply click or tap on the screen right here. I hope to see you all in the full course very soon, but for now, take care. Ciao, ciao.